Oh, cheers. All right. Title screen. This is super awesome upcoming TC39 proposals coming to you, TM. There we are. Hello. My name's Dill. I'm a front-end product development manager at Bookshop Interactive. I love boxing and climbing. I'm a giant TC39 nerd, and you can all hit me up at Dill on the Polyhack Slack. So I'm going to be talking about JavaScript tonight, and JavaScript is a language that is undergoing constant evolution. In 2015, there was a huge release that was 6 years in the making, and that caused a lot of chaos because there were a ton of language features that were all implemented at once, and not a lot of people were prepared for that. Now, in response to that enormous change, the ECMA body that is in charge of language features in JavaScript decided that they would never go through that again, came up with a technical committee called the TC39 that incrementally adds different language features to JavaScript on a yearly basis, just so that we don't run into the same problems we did 5 years ago, or I guess 3 years ago. Yes. So it's a living standard that's dictated by the TC39. It is the body that is in charge of evolving the language year by year. The TC39 leverages a process that implements new language features through a community body. So it is a membership made up of many companies, including all major browser vendors, as well as other non-official members. The process to add a new language feature starts at the strawman phase. It is a free-form way of submitting ideas to the council. It can come from members of the TC39 or through registered non-members. To move on, the TC39 has to organize an event where they go through and review different strawmen, and the ones that they choose move on to the proposal stage. At this stage, a formal proposal is recognized by the TC39. A champion must be identified that is in charge of the proposal itself, as well as any implementation details therein. The scope of the proposal, as well as potential challenges, are all laid out for the community. And at this stage, the TC39 declares officially its willingness to proceed with a proposal. Next is the draft stage. This is the preliminary version of the spec itself. It includes a formal description of the feature, including syntax and semantics in line with the ECMA standard. At this point, it's been developed enough that only incremental changes will be added over time. Then it moves on to become a candidate. At this part of the process, the proposal is nearing its completion. It requires a lot of community feedback at this point. So if you guys have like stage 3 proposals that you're interested in, be active on GitHub issues, because that is the thing that will push a proposal to the next finished stage. The spec text has to be completed at this point, and a reviewing editor is chosen by the TC39, independent of the champion, to go through it. Moving forward, changes made only affect major bugs. And finally, it's finished. Once it gets to the finished stage, all it needs is acceptance testing and the ECMA sign-off. And as soon as that's done, the proposal will be included in the next major release of JavaScript. So, what are the proposals? The first is optional chaining. So let's say we have a user object that we pull from a database. It's shaped roughly as shown. But uh-oh, Batman did not fill out the form. So we know that we want information, but we don't know necessarily that it's there all the time. And if we just try and console log this out, we're going to get a type error. The current solution is verbose as hell, and in my opinion, pretty ugly. Enter optional chaining. So we start with the old and gross current method. We end up with a much more concise and terse. That is a sexy line of code.
It's like Ruby.
It does look like Ruby, yeah.
That's the only, I think they call it the Elvis operator.
Really?
Sorry?
The Elvis operator is not the...
Yeah, it's in C# as well, yeah? Yeah.
That's cool. Why the Elvis operator? I don't know, I think it was like...
It's the question marks, right? Fair
Elvis'
enough.
hair?
Yeah, I think
Something
so.
reminded someone of Elvis. Elvis or in dancing.
So the cool thing about this is it will actually extend to functions that are nested in objects as well. So if you have a get villains function that will just return villains in the object, if it's not there, this will coerce to this. So under the hood, it will check to make sure that the function exists, and if it isn't present, it will return undefined, not just completely error out. So that is a nice bit of sugar. Next is the compositional pipe operator. This is the treachery of images, but let's say we start off with two functions. Say hello, which takes in a string and turns it into a sentence, and say loud, which makes you exclaim it. Currently, the only way of really composing these without advanced topics like currying would be to really expose yourself to callback hell and to nest the functions together kind of linearly. Now, this can get out of hand really, really quickly, as many of you know. Enter the compositional pipeline operator. This will let you take a thing and then, using this pipeline operator, compose it together to do something and then do something else. So this is stage one. This is something I'm really excited for. But it's taking a page out of Elixir's book. So it's already present in some functional programming libraries like Ramda and Lodash, but it will soon be coming to JavaScript, hopefully.
So is it like sugar for like Lodash's pipe?
Essentially, yeah. Yeah, under the hood it works almost
Thank you for
identically.
using that word, sugar. Syntactical sugar.
Absolutely.
So Japs.
I'm like the only guy that's clapping for me.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So it just pushes the results of whatever happens to the next function.
Exactly, yeah. Passes along in the chain.
Like very exactly what it looks like.
Yes, yes. Finally, async iteration. So this is stage 3. This is definitely coming to the language at this point. It's almost a sure thing. Let's say we have another object that we're getting from a database. Now, we retrieve the villains, and we don't necessarily always know how much data is going to come back from like a fetch. So enter async iteration. It adds in the for-await of syntax. So if you have, say, like a stream or a set amount of data that you're not necessarily sure the length of. Thank you. Yes, this is something that's been in Node for about 3 years. It's been in development for ECMAScript for 2 years, and we should be looking at this moving to stage 4 within the next couple months. And that is all.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. Yes.
So I'm still a little foggy. What's the difference between ECMA and TC39?
So ECMA is the governing body that sets the living standard of which JavaScript is an implementation. The TC39 itself is a body that decides on the incremental changes that will be added to the ECMA standard. So ECMA decides on the standard, the TC39 decides what will be added to the standard.
So what's the difference?
Well, so one is an internal body of the other. So the TC39 exists within ECMA.
So you really can have one without the other.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a pre-filtering tool.
Yes. Yes, exactly. All right. Other questions? Yo.
there's obviously probably more than just 3 proposals on the way through right now. Is there anything you stripped out, or maybe not obviously? Is
Yeah,
there
so
anything else?
there are so many proposals that are getting added in every day. I mean, any registered non-member can add a straw man, right? So there are new proposals being added in all the time. I highly recommend checking out the TC39 GitHub, where they track all of the ongoing proposals. And you can actually check out the minutes for the TC39 at any point just through their GitHub, and see what is going into the decisions that are made that evolve the language. Plus, it gives you an opportunity to voice your opinion and really weigh in on how the language evolves, because it is a living standard. So if there's a feature that you want, you can register and say, hey, I think this would be really cool. And if there's a feature that you've been using with Babel, or a feature that is going through the pipeline that you really want to see evolve in a different way, you can add an issue and say, hey, like, I really like how this is going. Let's see more of it. Or hey, like this thing totally breaks under these circumstances. And that can really help chug things along. So, yeah.
Anything specifically that you took out of, or like didn't get to address that is?
Oh, so knowledge coalescing is one thing that's I think it's stage 2 right now. That's really worth looking at.
Right.
So yeah, that's taken straight out of C# as well, I think. But
Or Elvis operators.
yeah. So that'll be really cool.
There's a lot coming out of C#.
There is, yeah. C# is
The whole async thing.
yeah.
I have a question. When one of these gets approved,
Yes.
when do I get to use it and like where?
So once it's in stage 2 and stage 3, you're looking at 2 implementations that will exist. At stage 2, it can exist with Babel transpiling, as well as just a native implementation that will work with JavaScript.
Yeah.
After it's in stage 3, it has to have 2 implementations that work. But you can hop on and start using them with Babel pretty quickly. So yeah, that definitely is something that I think we should see a lot more of. And there's a lot of traction, of course. JavaScript is a great language. So yeah.
How quickly does the browser support evolve?
Sorry?
What's like the timeline on the browser support? Does it take a long time to get everyone on board? Or?
It can. It's a lot faster now. So we saw. Sorry. Oh. We saw a huge amount of time between ES5 and ES6. I think it was like 6 years, 9 months. So now it is yearly changes. So the standard does evolve at least once a year. Changes will be added to the standard. So you're looking at like ES7, ES8, ES9 now. It's taking a lot of people time to catch up, but the standard is growing. And browser implementations are kind of implicit because all major browser vendors are part of the TC39.
They only add features, they deprecate features too.
So there's a lot of contention about that. Right now, I don't know if you guys heard about the Moo Tools debacle, but there was a lot of debate about adding a flatten method that had a name conflict with some pretty older Moo Tools from 2006. Yeah, it's pretty old school. So there was a huge flame war that actually occurred within the GitHub issues because someone. Well, someone recommended the name Squash instead of, or Squash or Smoosh. Someone recommended the name Smoosh instead of Flatten, and yeah, people did not like that. So yeah, it was yeah. So there is a lot of contention about things like that. Yeah,
But it would be just foggy.
it would. Yeah, yeah.
Of those 3, which is your favorite?
Compositional pipeline operator, 100%. So excited for it. There are so many ways I could use it now, and I really like Elixir as a language because it's so functional.
Pretty good one for front-end dev for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. It just makes it is sugar. It is pure sugar that makes things way easier to accomplish and makes your code a lot cleaner and easier to reason about. Yeah.
What's that? Closer to Haskell script.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Rock on!